Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into the heart of a novel that kind of turns our usual ideas about success and change completely upside down.
Yeah, we often think transformation has to be this noisy struggle, right? Like a big visible fight with lots of external markers.
Exactly. Conquests, victories, all that.
But the sources we looked at for this book, they paint a totally different picture. We're exploring a narrative where change isn't loud at all. It's presented as this quiet, internal realignment.
A realignment, okay.
And our mission today is to figure out why. Why does this quiet pivot, according to the book, hold more power than all the shouting and striving?
And right off the bat, something that jumps out is the author. This isn't your typical philosopher or self-help guru.
Not at all. We're talking about someone who spent 2 decades working in architecture and technology.
Think about that for a second. Designing logical systems, optimizing things, solving really complex practical problems.
Right. And that background, that specific combination, it's fascinating because it seems to give the writing this really unusual foundation.
How so?
Well, you've got this technical mind, focused on building solid logical structure. But at the same time, this person was deeply involved in spiritual studies, exploring inner reality, finding depth.
Ah, I see. Structure and depth.
Exactly. So the book itself feels almost like a blueprint for the soul,
Yeah.
but meticulously designed. It's like these two distinct worlds, the engineer and the mystic meeting right there on the page.
That definitely sets a unique stage, a story where maybe the internal structure is just as important as what happens on the outside. So where did this story even come from? It sounds like it wasn't just cooked up for the market.
No, it really wasn't. The sources are quite clear. It started as something very personal.
Personal how?
It began as a story the author wrote for their young nephew, actually, a kid named Raj.
Oh.
Yeah, the idea was to kind of open the door for him into the mythological world, specifically drawing from Hindu Vedic scriptures, a way to connect him with that ancient wisdom.
So like a custom-made guide, almost. A personal gift rooted in these deep traditions.
Precisely. But you know how sometimes the most personal things end up touching on something universal?
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be what happened here. It started with this specific goal for one person, but it evolved. It turned into a narrative that apparently resonates with seekers of every age, as one source put it. It went way beyond its original scope.
But it still has that grounded, maybe intimate feel.
I think so, yeah. Even though the themes it tackles are pretty huge, pretty cosmic.
That origin definitely gives it a certain weight, doesn't it?
Okay.
Okay, so let's get into the core idea then. How does this book handle change itself? Usually in stories, transformation kicks off with some massive crisis, right? You get fired, you go bankrupt, some public humiliation. How does this book signal that shift is starting?
It uses this really interesting line right near the beginning. It says something like, "There comes a moment in every soul's journey, quiet, unmarked, when the world begins to crack."
Quiet, unmarked. That's striking.
It is. It immediately tells you that the biggest shifts, the really profound ones, maybe they don't need fireworks or public announcement. They can just happen internally.
So that crack, it sounds less like a building collapsing and more like maybe realizing the existing structure just isn't working anymore.
If we think about the author's architecture background again, is it like a structural failure?
That's a great way to put it. Maybe more like a stress fracture. It signals the system can't really hold the weight it used to.
Okay.
The sources talk about this crack as the saturation point, that moment when we just hit the limit of what the purely material world can offer us.
That feeling that there has to be something more.
Exactly that quiet, nagging sense that life must mean more than just accumulating stuff or climbing the ladder. But crucially, the book doesn't frame this as a breakdown or a collapse.
It doesn't. How then? It frames it as a gentle return to what has always been within us. Less breaking down, more coming home.
Wait, a gentle return? That sounds, well, almost passive. We're always told transformation takes effort, right? You have to push, struggle, force your way onto a new path. How does this book square that gentle return idea with, actually changing? How is it different from just giving up?
See, I think the key is in the kind of action. It's not about giving up. It's about shifting focus. The transformation comes through things like listening, stillness, and realignment.
Listening, stillness, realignment.
Yeah, which is the total opposite of noise and struggle, isn't it?
Right.
Realignment is an action, but it's an internal one. It's like adjusting the foundations of a building rather than trying to fight a storm raging outside.
Okay.
So when you stop battling the external world so hard, you actually create the space to listen to your own inner blueprint, your own internal structure. And that listening, that's the active part. It's just quiet.
I get it now. So you're trading the kind of brute force of willpower for the precision of alignment. That makes a lot more sense, especially coming from someone who designs complex systems.
Exactly right. You don't fix a glitchy system by shouting at it louder, do you?
Mm.
You find the core issue and adjust the underlying structure.
Okay, that clicks. So let's take that idea of internal structure and look at the main character. Avyan, right? His journey sounds like it really messes with the standard hero's journey template.
It really does.
Most heroes, they rise to the top by, slaying the dragon, winning the battle. Avyan seems different.
He takes a completely counterintuitive path. The sources emphasize this. Avyan doesn't grow by conquering. He grows by bowing.
By bowing. What does that mean in practice?
It means that any external conquest or success he achieves is framed as just a byresult of an inner shift. It happens because he bowed first.
So the book is basically arguing that humility isn't weakness.
Quite the opposite. It's positioning humility as the ultimate form of strength, like the highest level of structural integrity. Because being humble means you acknowledge there's a system, a reality, that's bigger than just your own ego or desires.
Can you give an example? When Avyan bows, is he literally just giving up, or is it more metaphorical, like accepting gravity instead of trying to fly without wings?
It's definitely the latter. There's this moment described where he faces some seemingly impossible challenge. And instead of just charging in, marshaling all his force,
Yeah.
he steps back. He acknowledges his own limitations in that moment. He essentially bows to the truth of the situation.
Okay.
And that act, that humility, it's not about quitting. It's about shedding the ego, the part of him that insists he alone has to force the solution. By doing that, by aligning himself with a bigger principle, what the Vedic context might call dharma, or inherent truth, he allows the right solution to sort of emerge through him rather than having to be forced by him.
Wow. So the whole equation gets flipped. Success doesn't happen despite humility or setbacks?
It happens because of them. Strength is humility.
That's a radical shift.
And it ties directly into how the book treats failure, too.
How so?
Failure isn't presented as, the end of the road. It's reframed as fire.
Fire.
Yeah, like a necessary heat. It's the fire that burns away everything that isn't essential, everything superficial, leaving behind only the core truth, the stuff that really lasts.
So failure becomes a purification process. If something gets burned away by that fire, it means it wasn't truly solid or essential to begin with.
Exactly. You need the fire to see what the durable structure underneath actually was.
It's like metallurgy, isn't it? You need the intense heat to refine the ore to get the pure metal.
That's a perfect analogy.
Uh-huh.
The story insists we actually need that heat, those setbacks, to clarify our purpose and reveal what's truly unshakable inside us.
It makes the cost of failure seem, well, necessary. The cost of becoming pure, in a way. Okay, so this focus on internal structure, bowing, refining through fire, does the novel keep this just on the personal level with Avyan, or does it connect to something bigger?
Well, it definitely expands outwards. It becomes what one source called a civilizational reminder.
How does it do that?
By being so deeply rooted in those Vedic myths and structures, the book implicitly points back to periods in India's history, or maybe idealized versions of them, where material success and spiritual depth weren't seen as opposites.
Ah, so times when prosperity and inner wisdom supposedly coexisted.
Right, where they lived side by side,
Yeah.
as the source material puts it. And it's not just presented as ancient history. The suggestion is that this kind of balance is something the whole world is kind of struggling to find again now.
So how did that balance work according to the book's philosophy? Was it just about shared beliefs?
It seems to suggest that the outer structures of society actually mirrored the healthy inner structure of individuals, just like Avyan finds his strength by aligning with Dharma or truth.
Yeah.
The idea is that historical prosperity was possible because the external systems, the economy, the politics, the way things were built were designed in harmony with, or at least not in opposition to, that inner truth.
So progress wasn't just about building bigger or faster things.
Exactly. True progress, in this view, was defined by the union of the two.
Mm.
What we build outside and what we awaken within.
So the author, with that background in architecture and tech, is essentially making the case that you can't build a truly strong, sustainable external system, whether that's a company, a career, or a whole society, if the internal foundations, the inner lives of the people involved, are shaky or misaligned.
That's precisely it. The external structure needs the quiet strength, the integrity of the internal structure to actually last.
It forces you to redefine progress then, doesn't it?
Completely. Is progress just about, faster internet and taller skyscrapers? Or is it about building a society where all that external advancement is actually supported by and maybe even nourishes the inner depth of its people? That seems to be the vision the book holds out.
So if we try to wrap this up for everyone listening, the main takeaway feels like a total reversal of how we normally think about transformation.
Hmm.
It's not about force. It's not about willpower in the usual sense. It's not about fighting your way through. It's actually about stopping the fight, learning to bow, to yield, and to align with something fundamental that was maybe there all along.
That's the heart of it, I think. The deepest message seems to be that transformation is less about conquest and much more about return.
Return to what?
Return to that essential self, that core truth. And often that return happens through the quietest actions imaginable. Just listening, remembering who you really are, yielding to the truth of a situation.
It's those quiet moments.
Exactly. They hold the greatest power, paradoxically, to change everything.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how much energy we spend trying to force things, trying to conquer situations, or even parts of ourselves.
Right. Instead of putting that energy into making sure our own internal architecture is sound, aligned.
Which brings us right back to that fascinating background of the author, the engineer, and the mystic combined. So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. If true strength, as this book suggests, comes from humility and realignment, from designing your inner world correctly, where in your own life right now might you be trying to conquer something through sheer force?
Yeah. Where are you pushing when maybe the answer lies in bowing and finding that deeper alignment? And maybe consider this too. What essential thing might the fire of a recent failure or setback actually be trying to reveal to you about your own inner structure? What needs rebuilding, perhaps more quietly this time?
Some powerful questions to sit with. Definitely something to think about until our next deep dive.